of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for everyone for coming this evening. Our mission statement is to educate, empower, and inspire excellence. This meeting, along with all other meetings that we have, are on YouTube and archived on YouTube. If you'd like to have them in your email, you can hit subscribe and they'll come automatically. This meeting is a meeting of the school board in public for the purpose of conducting the school corporation's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There will be time for public participation as indicated on the agenda. This meeting site is fully accessible. Any person requiring further accommodation should contact the superintendent, Dr. Alan Ness. Next, we'll move on to public comment. If anybody in the audience would like to speak under other, please fill out a form here by Dr. Alanas for public comment and return it to the same place. Next, we're going to move on to student staff presentation. We have a presentation of Purdue PHS Washington, D.C. trip for Mr. Rainey.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Maceo Rainey, and I supervise and operate one of the largest pre-college program in all of Northwest Indiana, a federally funded program known as Educational Talent Search. Just to give you guys a quick overview, back in the 1960s, President Lyndon B. Johnson, under his domestic policy of that had to do with the war on poverty, came up with a pretty unique educational plan, which funneled hundreds of thousands of dollars to from the U.S. Department of Education to local universities to create a pre-college program. Most notably, the most widely known pre-college program is considered Upward Bound Educational Talent Search. And then once the students actually get in college, they can transfer over to what's known as Student Support Services. But the long and the short of it, ladies and gentlemen, is that these government-funded programs are intended to create college accessibility to income-eligible and first-generation college students. And by legal definition, the term first-generation college student means that they're the first in their families to pursue a four-year bachelor's degree, that their mother and father, their biological parents, do not possess a four-year bachelor's degree from an accredited United States institution. But to take a little deeper dive and bring you a little bit closer home to Porter County, at the university, we've engaged in a lot of empirical research, and we found out that in Porter County, that about close to 80% of its residents do not have a four-year bachelor's degree, which has an impact on workforce development, which makes sense in terms of being able to recruit a Fortune 500 company to set up an operation or a shop or work service in the community when they look at educational attainment. So we felt that there was a need to write a grant to the United States Department of Education for a talent search grant here. And our program recruits students from ages of the sixth grade all the way up to the senior year in high school. And we literally help them with a variety of different pre-college services that range from tutoring to academic monitoring to working on mission statements for universities, ACT, SAT prep, which is my biggest program that I like to push. And most importantly, helping young people meet the requirements for high school graduation and then entry into post-secondary college. Just last week, I had the luxury to take a group of Portage High School and Michigan City students on what's known, I coined this year, the East Coast College and Cultural Tour. Last year, the students went on the West Coast and they were able to visit USC, UCLA, a NASA airline industry plant. And this year, I wanted to give them a taste of an East Coast college tour, along with a variety of cultural attractions that students will be able to benefit from as they matriculate throughout school. Took on this particular trip, majority of the students were sophomores and juniors, especially the juniors who will be making a critical choice within the next year or two on which college to attend, because a fit is everything. And it's good that young people have an idea of the fit of the colleges that's out there and what they're able to apply for. But I mentioned earlier, if you're asking yourself, well, what exactly is the TRIO program? The long and the short, real quick, the legislative act from President Baines in the 60s, known as the Higher Education Act, created the pre-college program that we're in, that we're working within the confines of the educational talent search. But if we can move up a little bit more, because I've already established that we're a federally funded program, one of the things I noticed in our research is that majority of our schools within our target zone of our grant, they have this dynamic where it's about 300 or 400 students for one guidance counselor. And arguably, if you're low income or first generation college student, what's the likelihood that your guidance counselor is going to give you the time, the attention, and the immediate urgent care that you need to be prepared for college? And it's like that pretty much with every high school that we work in, that dynamic, 2 to 3, sometimes even one school, 420 kids for one guidance counselor. I definitely understand those budget restraints, but this is where we fit in at. My team of fully staffed educational leaders provide a variety of services. I serve as a department's director, but I have a full staff of educational advisors to go out into the schools to recruit, grade monitor, take care of the 21st century tracking, and to make sure that our students enrolled in our program are on track for graduation and post-secondary attendance. I mentioned a few services that we provide, and this is how we become a very strategic partner to Portage Township High School, because we believe in collaboration just as much as the Portage Township School Board. That collaboration piece suggests that by working together and combining resources, we can create experiential learning experiences for young people. We provide everything from FAFSA assistance, and I want to stress that word, FAFSA assistance, because October 1st will be here faster than you know it. And that's the day when the government will pretty much appeal to the Portage High School seniors and say, hey, we have financial aid available, and it begins October 1. By April 15th, all of our Portage High School seniors should have their FAFSA completed. Now, April 15th sounds like a tax deadline, but for our young people, April 15th represents the due date for their FAFSA completion. And also academic tutoring is something that we pride ourselves in being able to partner with our school districts to provide high caliber tutoring, cultural activities, career explorations. But one of the things I want loud and clear for the community and for the school board to hear is that our SAT fee waivers that we offer, along with our SAT preparation, is second to none. And more importantly, we provide this service for our young people that's enrolled in our program totally free of charge. We bring pretty much the guru of SAT, ACT test prep, Dr. Jim Giovannini, to the PNW campus in Westville, and he does a pretty intense boot camp with the students to prepare them. His expertise, his knowledge of the College Board and how the test is designed. And let's face it, ladies and gentlemen, if our students answer 1 or 2, maybe 3 more questions correctly on the SAT, that makes the difference in terms of how much scholarship money they'll be eligible for. Okay, so we take that very seriously at PNW within our TRIO program, is that SAT, ACT test prep that we offer. All right, our first stop along this college tour, one of the things that I was hoping to accomplish in this East Coast College Tour was to connect students to a cultural experience that connects what they learn in the classroom to real life experience, but also sit them face to face with financial aid advisors as well as college admissions personnel to get an in-depth critique on how they would create their portfolio going into their senior year. And because of the school board's commitment to high academic achievement, I only wanted to visit the best. Harvard, MIT, the #1 university in the world, okay, which is consistent to the academic standards that Portage Board of Education has set of high standards. So in Boston, our first stop was Boston, Massachusetts. And when we were able to see the colonial part of Boston, in which we took the students to see everything from the Boston Massacre, the site, Boston Common, the place where Frederick Douglass gave his anti-slavery speech at the local church, the Boston Harbor, where the tea was dumped into the harbor at the start of the Revolution, and also Paul Revere's monument and his actual home, where he actually took the horse out of the barn and rode throughout the midnight hour to let the colonial powers know that the British were coming. These were all historical sites within Boston Common that we were able to make application of. If we can go on this a little bit more, a second, back up a little bit. So after having time spent in colonial Boston, we were able to visit Harvard on the left and MIT on the right. MIT and Harvard, I like to coin as brother sister schools, because it takes a level of academic rigor and achievement for those two institutions to admit students. They have an unusually high, very low admittance rate. They take anywhere between a 33 on the ACT to a 1500 on the SAT, but all of those opportunities are possible with supports in place, and more importantly, some other dynamics that the universities look for besides a test score. And this is where that personal mission statement and where that personal interview comes into play. So the opportunity to attend MIT or Harvard for Portage Township students, it's possible. It's possible. And we put them in position where they could benefit from developing those relationships with admissions officers and financial aid counselors to make that a potential reality, and most importantly, showing them how to overcome the barriers. Moving up a little bit. One of the most enlightening things that the students benefit from was our trip to Fenway Park later on that evening. We were able to see the Boston Red Sox, who won the baseball championship last year, played against the Chicago White Sox at Fenway Park, and they were able to sit in the Green Monster, the historic Green Monster at Fenway Park. Many of them have never been to a professional baseball game before, but to go and go inside of Fenway Park and benefit from the atmosphere that only North Boston can provide by way of Fenway Park was a cultural experience that I'm sure our young people would never forget. Part two of that Boston trip was to create an opportunity for the students to go to the JFK Presidential Library and Museum. And JFK is a very, very, very important concept when it comes to the trio concept as a whole, because he began the first domino. His vice president was Lyndon Baines Johnson, who carried out many of JFK's initiatives that had to do with civil rights and open access for college attendance. So we had a great time at JFK's Presidential Library, getting the spirit of not only educational talent search, but what it means to live in an open society and stress the notion of tolerance. Okay. From there, we boarded our luxury coach bus and headed southward to New York City, in which we were able to see the cultural sites of New York City, being one of the most unique places from an industrialized city that we can think of in this side of Western Hemisphere. But being able to visit NYC, Juilliard Music School, and even strolling through Harlem, New York. We were able to see a lot of cultural attractions and also give them an opportunity to go on a cruise around the Statue of Liberty and that Ellis Island area, the port of where U.S. legal immigration occurred at the start of the 20th century. So being able to connect what students have learned in the classroom by giving them a firsthand experience really meant a lot to the students to be able to have that experiential learning experience from the time we stayed in New York. Okay. All right, and we actually had a yacht, and we were able to have dinner and conduct our cruise and just really visit the 5 boroughs of New York, whether it was Queens, the Bronx, Manhattan, but really had a New York experience right there on the Hudson River, connecting New Jersey to New York. But it was an excellent time and a very exciting time. Most importantly, it was an opportunity for young people to really feel the diverseness that New York has to offer. Then from there, we traveled southward to Washington, D.C. And on our first stop and that tour was Georgetown University, located right outside of Washington, D.C. And this was the opportunity for our young people to come firsthand with college admission officers that talk to them in-depthly about not only having a test score that's admirable, but also to work on a mission statement. And that was consistent to what we learned at Harvard and MIT, that a lot of college admission boards look for a personal mission statement or some type of statement that expresses who you are, opposite a test score or even your GPA that matter. And this is something I'm going to work with our juniors and seniors on a lot this year from Portage, writing a personal mission statement that would be impressive to an admissions counselor or an admissions board, because arguably they want to see more. You have more to offer a university than a test score. And also at Georgetown University, we were able to visit a lot of iconic places on the university campus. We also saw where President Obama gave his speech on climate change right there on the campus. And some of the most celebrated people have come to Georgetown University for a variety of reasons, to either teach, give guest lectures, or to give a speech. And then from there, we visited an iconic HBCU, which is an acronym for Historically Black College University, Howard University, and met with their admissions office and examined some of the prerequisites for early admittance, and also had a chance from a cultural point of view to travel and visit and tour the National Mall, Washington, D.C., as well as see some cultural sites at the new building of the Smithsonian Museum of African American History. They had everything at that museum from Chuck Berry's red Cadillac to Miles Davis' trumpet, you name it, and even Michael Jackson's original hat and coat. So it was a great cultural experience and opportunity to kind of get a feel on what Washington, D.C. has to offer. But at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, if students had to pay for this event for themselves, you're looking at close to access of over $5,000 with the hotel and the transportation. And this was absolutely free for Portage High School students enrolled in our program. We pay for it through the grant. And we don't believe that PNW and McDonald's and Motel 6. Our students stayed at 5-star hotels from the Embassy Suites all the way up to, he can tell you. It's one thing to hear from me as a talking head. It's another thing to hear from our actual trio students that attend Portage. And majority of them, the students that I invited, are working today and couldn't get off work despite my nagging. They couldn't make it. So because of work and things of that nature. But I really wanted them to give expert testimony. Maybe I have a chance for Charles to stand before you all and tell of his experience as he makes his decision whether to go to Ball State or Valparaiso. But he's a student that serves as testimony of the power of our program and the collaboration with the school board. Any student that's eligible for our program, they must be a U.S. citizen, age 12 to really 27 years of age is what the language is in the grant. Traditionally, they're in grades 6 to 12. 67% of our students, or a third of our students, must be income eligible and considered first-generation college students. However, I have a third of our students, or 33%, that can be classified as other. Other means both parents can be PhDs and make $1 million. Doesn't matter. But 67% of those seats must be reserved for income eligible first generation. And as these seniors, and Charles are one of them, 125 of them have graduated out of our program. So I'm looking to recruit 125 more 4-H students in the fall to be part of this very valuable program that speaks to the heart of collaboration in Porter County. So I will be not only making my rounds in the school, but talking to parents in the community about the financial aid and the federal money that's in this community for the express purposes of pre-college education. So, and if I can use a few minutes to bring Mr. Charles Davis up, who's a graduate of Portage Township High School this year. You can say a couple things and feel free to kind of break him over coals about his experiences.
Hello, everybody. My name is Charles Davis. I am a member of the TRIO program at Portage High School, and I feel like one of the main things that the TRIO program taught me was to be a leader too. It also helped me get into the colleges that I wanted to get into, because I got into IUB, Ball State, Valpo, ISU, Purdue, and it was mostly because of the SAT prep that really did help me improve my score. When I first took it, I got a 980, but after the SAT prep, I got a 1280, and I used the skills that they taught us there, and I applied it, and I studied, and it was exciting. But it was more of a shift in me from going on these trips and having Mr. Rainey as a mentor that I looked up to. He taught me how to be. The program taught me how to be a leader and just be a mentor myself to younger kids, even younger classmates as a senior in high school or now as a freshman in college. And I feel like there's so many amazing things that this program. I saw a lot of things, new places. The hotels are amazing. The food was out of this world. And I just feel like there's a lot of things.
Can you tell me when we went salsa dancing?
Oh yeah,
Downtown Chicago.
Yeah, man, the salsa dance, that was amazing. I kind of I don't remember all the steps, but we learned it. It was like a full course, and I was just like, wow, dance with a older lady too. It was nice. It was nice. It was a good time. Yeah.
So, Charles, how did you learn about the TRIO program, and when did you first become part of it?
I learned about the TRIO program, let's say my junior year is when I first was invited to the trips from Miss Linnea, and she was talking. It was the first trip was I think it was a leadership conference of some sort, and she was like, "You want to bring me and Angela along?" So I was like, "Okay," and then that's when from there we started getting more emails, and I started going on more trips. This is really cool. I like this a lot. And yeah.
What are you going to study?
Architectural engineering.
Very good.
Yes, ma'am. The essay, what was it? The essay,
The one that you wrote in. Are you talking about the essay?
the workshop.
Yeah.
The essay workshop. That helped me get into. It taught me how to write good essays. All right. And I got into Ball State's first year architectural program. Yeah.
That's a big deal.
So a direct embed is
Yeah. And it's funny because the SSS, the Student Support Service Director at Ball State, called my office asking about Charles Davis and pretty much trying to do a reference check. And that was my opportunity to knock it out the park for him. And kids need advocates, need people and strategic places to be able to be their eyes and ears when they can't see and hear. But for someone to serve as an advocate And I guarantee Ms. Pence at Ball State that Charles Davis will not only be a leader on your campus, but he'll set a standard like he did for our program.
Thank you very much. What a great trip, and Mr. Rainey, what a great mentor you are. I mean, obviously, you do great. You know, it's just a positive attitude, outlook, and I can see where you're going to get 125 students very easily. What a wonderful opportunity for those 125 students.
Thank
Can't
you.
wait to hear from you next year. Thank you.
And I really want to thank this school board and the superintendent for giving our program, along with myself, access to be able to meet students like Charles, Angelo, and provide them services. Now, we're in 4 or 5 different schools, and that's sometimes not always the case. But I think this type of collaboration, this open door policy speaks well to the culture and the climate of this community, this particular school district, and the school board to be able to partner with P&W for the express purposes of raising academic achievement, because you can't do it by yourself.
No, you cannot.
All right, I think we've already proved you can't do it by yourself, so we have to have those collaborations and those partnerships. And by collaborating with resources, this is the outcome. Angelo's going to IU Bloomington. He's going to either Valpo or Ball State, and countless others that I didn't put out there. So I like to believe our program and our collaboration is working, and it's important that the community knows that, and the media knows that.
And Charles, be encouraged, because I am a product of educational talent search from back in the day. It used to be at Indiana University Northwest back in the day. So be encouraged, because I'm a first generation and it did plant a seed for me as well. Just stay the path, stay the course, and use the supports once you get into school. Okay? Okay.
You're great, Charles.
Yes, you're gonna
And
do
I wanna
great
say-
things.
I
You
wanna say-
are.
I want to say thank you for
Yes.
Mr. Rainey too.
Yes,
For
Mr.
being
Rainey,
good.
thank you.
He was a really good mentor for me.
Thank you.
And he made me more mature. Like I'm more mature than I was then. Yeah.
Thank you. Charles, we'd love
Good
to
stuff.
hear from you.
Congratulations.
Great representation of the school district.
Yeah, that's awesome. Love it. Hey, keep up the good work, okay? Make us proud. You will.
Mr. Rainey, thank you for including
Thank you.
Portage
Yeah.
and inviting us, and Dr. Allen's congratulations, you for recognizing those opportunities and welcoming this program into our school
Yes, absolutely.
system. So that's
Thank you. My pleasure.
collaboration, partnership is really awesome.
And I want to mention as well, the amount of, as Mr. Rainey mentioned, doing this on our own is not possible. And when you look at the number of counselors we have at Portage High School, again, we're in a similar situation as every other district. And so if we don't reach out to those partners, when they reach into us, then our kids do not benefit like this. Not only is Mr. Rainey partnering with our students, but we've also got, and our counselors, he has been very open in collaborating with a college connection coach that we have with Ivy Tech. That we also have Urban League coming in and doing some of the academic counseling and the tutoring and the supports. Not only creating equity, but also raising the ability to have our students access AP programs, the background and experiences that can't be demonstrated within the walls of our school. And as you know, this board has definitely prioritized the requirements of ESSA and making sure our kids have the quality opportunities that they deserve. And I cannot thank you enough for all you do to partner with us and how you continually, you and your team, reach out to our students, reach out to our counselors, and do what it takes to help build this community of kids. And Charles, you are just a limelight in this whole situation, because you know what, sir? You are going to achieve big things. And you know what? Give yourself that credit, because you leaned into this program and just keep doing it. You're going to go far.
Thank you so much.
You're gonna do great things.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
Next, we'll move on to the good news report, Dr. Allen.
I don't think it's easy to follow that. But I do have some good news for you. Mrs. DeRosawi is actually at the National School Association for Marketing, so she is not here this evening, but I do have the good news for you. So many of our clubs and athletic groups have been busy this summer participating in camps. As you're aware, Boy R Enrichment Summer have just been a true hit for our kids. Parents are very happy as well, and we'll continue those moving forward. special congratulations goes out to our girls basketball team who brought home the championship at the 3rd annual Lake Central Shootout. Also, our Portage School Resource Officers, Mike Kurz and Mike Stagey, attended the National Association of School Resource Officers National Conference. Our full-time officers had the opportunity to attend several of the workshops that keep them up to date on the latest leading practices in school safety and security. While they were there, they met keynote speaker and former West Point professor, Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman, who spends time helping various organizations meet school safety goals. And we, of course, thank them for their dedication and continued professional development and goals to make sure our students have access to our SROs. Also, students throughout Portage have been enjoying, again, the summer enrichment camps. So far, we've received over 200 registrations for the camps and have still a wide variety of interests in the upcoming camps. Teachers have been doing a wonderful job engaging our students while enriching their learning. Several PTS groups participated in the annual Portage 4th of July parade. The PTS Transportation Department class of 2020 distinguished young woman Isabella Marquez, PHS Marching Band, the PHS Dance Team, and the Portage Association of Teachers all walked in the parade. Also, the PHS Girls Bowling Team served as the Grand Marshals of the parade after their 2nd championship this year. Portage High School incoming senior Anaya Lazaro was selected by the city to perform the national anthem prior to the evening's firework display, and just a really solid representation of those in Portage Township schools. And finally, the PTS Food Service Department is working hard to serve breakfast and lunch to our families this summer with our meal program. So far, we have served over 21,000 meals across all of our sites since June 3rd. And again, those sites will be open through July 26th.
A lot of great things going on in PTS in the summer. Next, we'll move on to agenda adjustment. Does anybody on the board have anything under agenda adjustment?
Yeah, I just have the one item I'd like to adjust to the amendment to the agenda, and that would be a curriculum update for Pearson.
And where are you suggesting to put that agenda item?
I'm suggesting to put it under new business,
What number?
6.04. I'm sorry, 05.
So 6.05. What was it again? Curriculum?
Curriculum update Pearson.
Okay, next we're gonna move on to board development, trustee Clancy, redevelopment and finance.
I have a couple of updates from the redevelopment commission. There was another piece of property sold to Holiday Properties at Congress Square, so they are going to be continuing that for the promenade projects over there in that area. And they are also looking for quotes to complete new landscaping with new lights on Christmas Road. So I'm not sure the exact location of that. And then there was a special meeting held with the Delta Institute regarding possible reclaimable materials in the Gary's Middle School. So it looks like there's a $5,000 contract with Delta, and they're going to assess if there is any reclaimable material prior to the demolition. And then for finance, we did have a meeting last week to discuss the timeline and the amount of the GO bonds for 2019, as well as the first mortgage bonds for the spring of next year. So we will have more information to present to the board on this in the fall.
Thank you. Trustee Finley, policy board plan. Do you have anything?
No, nothing to update regarding policy. I believe we're still waiting on ISBA to give us feedback on our current policies, and nothing to update on the board plan at this time.
Trustee Maleta, Park Department, Building Grounds, Innovation and Finance.
Park Department, really nothing relevant to this board to report from the latest meeting. Those are the grounds we haven't met, and trustee Clancy will explain our finance. So good news there.
And as far as the legislative update, we do have a federal flash.
The FCC started a process that could limit funding for Wi-Fi in schools and libraries. Congress addressed dual enrollment. The House passed legislation funding the Department of Education, and the Department of Education issued guidance opposed by leading Democrats and civil rights groups. Hi, I'm Philip Lovell, and I'm joined by Ann Heisler. Let's begin with Wi-Fi in schools. Ann?
Thanks, Philip. E-rate, a program of the Federal Communications Commission, or FCC, provides funding to make internet connectivity and other telecommunications services more affordable for schools and libraries. The program received a major overhaul in 2014 that prioritized funds for Wi-Fi and raised the annual spending cap from $2.4 to $3.9 billion. The modernization has been a huge success, increasing the number of students with strong broadband in their classrooms from 4 million to 45 million, according to Education Superhighway. The FCC, however, is now proposing an overall spending cap for the Universal Service Fund, or USF, which finances E-rate. On top of E-rate, the USF provides funding for 3 other initiatives that aim to improve communications for rural and low-income communities. The Republican commissioners proposing the new cap believe it will help make USF programs more efficient, but many advocates fear it will result in the E-rate program competing with the other USF programs for funding. The FCC is accepting comments on its proposal until August 12th. The education groups have weighed in, asking the FCC to extend the comment period since most schools are currently on summer break.
Dual enrollment was a hot topic on Capitol Hill last week. On Tuesday, Senators Rob Portman of Ohio and Mark Warner of Virginia introduced the Go to High School, Go to College Act. The bill would create a pilot program allowing federal Pell Grants to cover the cost of dual enrollment for high school students in up to 250 institutions of higher education. Under the program, high school students would have the opportunity to earn at least 12 college credits on a pathway toward a degree or credential. An estimated 50,000 students would benefit from the pilot. The legislation was also introduced in the House by Representatives Marcia Fudge of Ohio and Elise Stefanik of New York on June 13th.
Bipartisan support for dual enrollment was also evident last week as the House Education and Labor Committee held its 5th and final hearing in a series on the reauthorization of the Higher Education Act. With the focus on innovation to improve equity, exploring high-quality pathways to a college degree, dual enrollment in early college high schools were discussed frequently during the hearing and endorsed by members on both sides of the aisle. Representative Bobby Scott of Virginia, chairman of the committee, said that the benefits of dual enrollment, quote, are particularly important for underserved students who may be discouraged from enrolling in college because they believe they cannot afford it or just don't see themselves as college students. To view the hearing, visit the link below.
The House passed legislation last week funding the Department of Education, Department of Defense, and several other agencies. That's the good news. The bad news is that no Republicans voted for the bill, so changes will certainly be needed for it to pass the Senate and make it to the president's desk. Our viewers might recall that the legislation includes some important increases to education programs, such as an additional $1 billion for Title I.
The path forward is murky at best for this and the remaining spending bills. Congress is supposed to pass them by October 1st, but Democrats in the House, Republicans in the Senate, and President Trump have not agreed on an overall spending limit for the year. The spending limit currently in place was set in 2011, and, if left untouched, will result in across-the-board cuts, an outcome virtually no one supports, either politically or practically. We'll keep you posted.
Finally, the Department of Education issued guidance intended to provide flexibility to school districts in meeting the policy known as Supplement Not Supplant under Title I of the Every Student Succeeds Act, or ESSA. Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos said that, quote, schools need to spend resources on what's best for students, not what's least likely to come up in an audit. We joined congressional Democrats and civil rights organizations in voicing concerns that the guidance goes too far and could result in fewer dollars being invested in low-income students.
That's all for today. For an email alert when the next federal flash is available.
Thank you. Trustee Vasquez, PTF, the Wellness Committee.
The PTF meeting that was scheduled for last week, scheduled for today as we speak, but they are going to discuss what they've accomplished, what they still need to do, the Slack communication system, which is a workplace where conversations happen in channels, which are organized by topic or project, and so they'll be taking a close look at that, so in order to increase communication. and they will be looking at the strategic plan, so what that's going on.
Thank you. Dr. Allen, do you have any update under any old business, advanced imaging update, or some teacher proposal?
At this time, we have worked with Mr. Elwood, and he and Mr. Ron are finalizing the proposal to go out.
So we will be asking the board at the July 22nd meeting to authorize advertising of the RFQ. So we have that prepared.
And before we do that, once again, the board has requested documents that we still have not received.
That's what's
We
being,
need those
yeah,
documents.
you'll have
Before
those.
that RFQ is even brought onto the agenda.
Yeah, the RFQ is almost completed, so that should be to the superintendent tomorrow. She will send it out along with the summary of all the machines in the district and everything we requested.
Also for sub-teacher proposal, I had provided that information to the board, and I was hoping to take action on that so that we can update those qualifications and begin hiring substitutes that meet those qualifications as identified by the state.
Next, we'll move on to new business, ratification of Amplify agreement. We'll need a motion and a second, please.
Make a motion to approve the ratification of the Amplify agreement.
I'll second.
Discussion? And then call the roll, please.
Trustee Clancy?
Yes.
Trustee Finley?
Yes.
Trustee Vasquez, yes. Trustee Maleta?
Yes.
Trustee Christie?
Yes. Next, we'll move on to the ratification of the Panora agreement. We need a motion and a second, please. I'll make a motion to approve the Panorama agreement.
Second.
Discussion? Call the roll, please.
Trustee Clancy?
Yes.
Trustee Finley?
Yes.
Trustee Vasquez, yes. Trustee Maleta?
Yes.
Trustee Christie?
Yes. Need a motion for the ratification of the school duty agreement.
Make a motion to approve the ratification of the school board agreement.
I'll second.
Discussion? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Trustee Clancy?
Yes.
Trustee Finley?
Yes.
Trustee Vasquez, yes. Trustee Maleta?
Yes.
Trustee Christie?
Yes. And I'll make a motion to approve the overnight field trips by PHS Boys Cross Country Team to Albion, Indiana, August 5th through the 9th. And for team camp. We have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Call the roll, please.
Trustee Clancy?
Yes.
Trustee Finley?
Yes.
Trustee Vasquez, yes. Trustee Maleta?
Yes.
Trustee Christie?
Yes. Next, we'll move on to 6.05, curriculum update. For Pearson, I believe it is more than Pearson. However, if you want to just give that aspect of it. And if you do have an update, or I know that you've given the board 2 documents on this already. So do you have any other update for the board of this evening?
I don't have any other update other than, that was in the June, I believe the June 4th update, and then I had asked that we look to schedule a work session
Yes.
for that, for the curriculum.
And Mr. Elwood, do you have any update on the curriculum from Pearson as far as looking at?
The cost
reviewing
breakout, the 6-year,
The contract?
yeah, so I received that from Dr. Stevens last Tuesday, and then he and I need to schedule a time to meet.
So you have no
obviously, other than that.
Then I do have questions. Is this an online curriculum or is this a textbook curriculum?
Was that answered in the PowerPoint presentation, Dr. Elenes?
There is a significant amount of information in that PowerPoint,
I
and then
remember seeing it.
yeah, and then, so my intent is then, as we go through the work session, to be able to break down some of those things further for you. It is heavily digital, however, the resources are specifically also blended in nature so that we make sure our kids have a good, honestly, a balance between blended.
Okay, last question, is the time sensitive part of it? Because when are we looking to implement this for the students and the teachers? Because typically when we're adopting curriculums for professional development, that goes along with it, and with school starting so soon, and our calendars are already tight, we don't have a lot of time. So what's the plan for us to move forward with the work session and then professional development for teachers?
Sure. So the work session, as I shared in the update, I'm looking to set a date with the board to review to go over the items more in detail based on those PowerPoints the week of July 22nd. And furthermore, regarding the professional development piece, we have asked for, the professional development to be tailored toward our needs in the implementation. And with that, it's imperative for us that it be digitally accessed. So our teachers will have the opportunity to have that archived professional development.
Okay.
And furthermore, if they would like to come in and have opportunities outside of the day of their responsibilities with instruction, they do that all the time. As we know, our teachers will stay after, kind of communicate, but they have, as you know, the opportunities during their workday within the workday to be able to have access to those professional development opportunities. And we will scaffold that to meet their needs. Now, I'm not concerned about the actual time sensitivity of it. One thing that I have found and we have discussed in detail, and also one particular leading practice that we are finding is that the more that our teachers, once they have this, if they have a little bit of time to explore, then come to the professional development opportunities and us be able to scaffold that accordingly, the better they'll be prepared for the implementation process.
So do you think that they're ready for that piece then? The exploration, have they explored enough to be able to be ready for implementation?
Well, no, because at this point in time, I've not brought it.
Okay, thank you, that you've answered my question, thank you.
And then I know Dr. Elenez, that when I spoke to you about this specific issue, that we need a rollout plan. And that will answer all of these questions for the board. And anytime we're talking, close to the $1 million range that you want the board to spend, it's only fair for the taxpayers to be seeing how this money is going to be spent, how it's going to be rolled out into the district. And then we have all of those questions. So that could be presented at the public work session in a rollout plan format that you've been provided. We would appreciate it.
And I will absolutely make that happen. And I think it was very helpful guidance too, to go back into board docs for myself, being that this is the first time I'm going forward with a curriculum adoption, to go back to how previous adoptions were presented and the information that our taxpayers need, so that you can make the responsible decisions before I just simply say, this is what we like. And I also appreciate that, looking back and analyzing the data of our student achievement that shows their patterns so that we know we're making the right curriculum decisions. And I know that that has been a long-standing, as I'm looking back into board docs, that has been something that the board in the past has requested. And so I am working alongside Mrs. Williams, and we are actually in the process of making sure that we have that all collected and will be able to be presented in that work session as well. So I think that in the long run, looking at this being time sensitive, but also recognizing that sometimes taking our time is much more important so that we make sure we've got everything in place.
So I guess moving forward for curriculum adoption for us, maybe we need to backdate it and even look at what is the absolute end date we need to actually have curriculum presented to us as a board. Is it February? Is it March? So that we can have an accurate, more sensitive rollout date for the teachers and the students so that we can be ready for when school starts. I mean, even looking at things that way. I mean, especially with the experience and the knowledge, because it's so sensitive, especially if we were talking about textbooks, it gets crazy. If we were talking about getting hard textbooks, because getting it in, shipment, divvying them out, that's a nightmare. So just thinking about those sorts of things. So that's why I was asking for more in-depth details and questions. And even with the online access, you're even talking about giving kids access codes and teachers. That's even a whole nother nightmare too. So that's why I was asking questions.
It's not done. Giving kids access.
Yes, that's all done within the class.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, but you still have to go through a system through Pearson, and you have to do some other things behind the scenes to make sure it happens. That's the only reason why I was asking if it was time sensitive and the training and things. So just wanted to be aware.
I think that it's imperative to also share that with our rolling out of the ICANN statements that match the curriculum with high reliability schools, we wanted to make sure that the implementation of the ICANNs so that they could fully take in the depth of where we're headed with curriculum. Again, I think in the future, timing,
Yes.
it can be absolutely
Sooner rather than yes.
I should also be including information about teachers who have piloted or have
some teachers who have piloted different online components in the classrooms to include different things from science experiments that are online and digital, access to the various components, and absolutely, we have feedback from those.
Okay, great, okay, that'll be helpful, thank you.
Dr. Allen, do you have anything under superintendent reports or updates?
I did just want to share with you that summer school was a success at the elementary and middle school. We have finished there and are on to our second session of summer school at Portage High School. And I have continued to be very impressed with the amount of engagement of our students, the attendance rate of our students, and the amount of true learning that's taking place. So it's been a great summer for learning. Also, there are a lot of students doing online learning, and that will continue to be a focus as we look at remediation being a priority for summer school. However, also recognizing that there are students who also like to get ahead and make some room in their schedule and continuing to promote that. Our interns have been just a blessing yet again, and I want to thank the board for continuing to make that a priority where our students have the opportunity to be interns over the summer. Our communications students are working on the back to school newsletter along with some other things with our logo. And I know that there's been a lot of wire pulling with our technology interns and wiping computers, all sorts of things. They've gotten dirty, they've done it all. So seeing them each and every day has been a great thing. It's nice to have students around in the summer because summer tends to be really quiet. So it's been a great opportunity. I did notice that the interns are starting to come in and keep the lights off when they come in at 6:30 in the morning. So I think that getting up early is starting to catch up to them, but they're still really excited and doing a great job.
Does anybody on the board have anything under other? I have one thing I just noticed, I maybe because the computer's here, that when we do a PowerPoint presentation or when we have a video up, it's not actually linked somehow to that. Whoever, the taxpayers, whoever's watching the YouTube video is actually watching the screen on a great big huge, if you want to look there, screen, and there's no way they'd be able to see any content of it. Is there any way that can you check to see if that YouTube PowerPoint presentation will allow to upload videos so that when we show a video, that's all that's going to show on that screen. We don't need to see the board.
Okay.
And the video behind, or the same thing with the PowerPoint presentation. Sure. We have an IT department, so I'm kind of thinking that we'd be able to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. Does anybody in the audience have anything under other? This meeting's adjourned. Thank you.